Well, my friends, it's the holidays. And as you know, no one can trigger you like family, friends, or other people that you spend the rest of the year avoiding. Willingly walking into these situations can be super stress-inducing. And on top of that, buying gifts, overspending, rushing in and out of stores, trying to find deals, traveling, and also the fear of dealing with who can I see, how can I keep myself safe, and keep everybody safe can be extraordinarily anxiety-inducing. And on top of that, then when the holidays are over, maybe you go into the post-holiday depression. So we at Inner Solutions have dedicated ourselves to helping all of you through this situation by creating this 4-part series in how to deal with holiday anxiety.
So in part 1 of this series, we're going to address particularly how to deal with family members or people in general who trigger you. When you go into these situations, maybe you haven't seen somebody in a while, maybe you're consciously avoiding them. But when you go in there, they trigger you. How do you deal with that? We're going to talk about how to deal with judgment. Maybe you're around people who criticize you and maybe they think some negative things about you. And so that can be a further stressor. So how do you deal with judgment? And of course, we're going to mention the holiday rush. In this particular video, that feeling of pressure, expectation, overwhelm that can get people really stressed out during the holidays because there's just so much going on, how to not fall into that. So for this video, triggering people, dealing with judgment, and not getting caught in the rush. And as Jim said, throughout the rest of the series, we're going to cover a lot of amazing topics related to holiday anxiety, so stay tuned for that.
Let's start by talking about judgment. So this is most typical if you're going to see your parents or you're going to see your brother or somebody who can be, outwardly critical or who can just zone in on these areas of your life that you maybe already feel insecure about, but they're just poking and prodding you. And again, the reason why family and friends are so triggering is the deeper the connection, the better somebody knows you, the more of the history that you have with someone, the more likely and the more kind of power they have to trigger these emotions and these feelings that are already inside of you.
It's also because a lot of our older parts were formed during that relationship. So if you're growing up with your family and maybe you had a rough childhood, maybe you had a rough teenage year, when you go back to that environment, even if you haven't thought about that stuff or really felt anything related to childhood, when you go back home, some of that can come up unconsciously. Seeing your old bedroom, seeing just somebody you haven't seen in a while can bring up a lot of issues that maybe you thought had been resolved, but have still some residue in your body. So there's a lot of reasons why our family or these older relationships can trigger us deeply. But what's important is to go in with some awareness, right? To go in prepared. When you go in and just kind of hope for the best, I think there's oftentimes a disappointment because you want things to be a certain way, but you're leaving it entirely up to chance and just kind of hoping that things work out. But of course, there's so much opportunity for people to get into some kind of argument or some drama. There's so much history there. It's really hard not to bring up some past issue. And so you want to go in prepared, kind of expecting that maybe this will happen, maybe that will happen, maybe your aunt will say that thing she always says, maybe your dad will do that thing he always does. Whatever it is that really gets you going in your family dynamic, go in with a certain preparedness, almost like you're mentally visualizing what will you do when that happens. Will you get angry? Will you say something back? Will you get up and leave? What do you think is an appropriate reaction and that you would be happy with? So you can almost visualize that and kind of go in prepared.
Yeah, and if you're going in with an anxiety already going into the situation, what Ennis is talking about is just a simple form of exposure therapy. Visualization is a wonderful form of exposure therapy where you can really meditate and just think about, just kind of ponder on, why does this bother me so much? Mm-hmm. Why would I be so triggered by what my mother says? And you can unpack it a lot too. And so also what you're doing is, as you visualize different ways to react it, you're actually activating new thought patterns in your brain. Mm-hmm. You're literally changing the structure of your brain through visualization. Now, another piece besides this kind of external judgment or criticism, is just triggering situations. You know, maybe your mom isn't as healthy or doesn't take care of herself as well as she does. Maybe your brother is on the phone all the time and you feel neglected by him. These all have very similar, very, very similar overlaps. And it's mixed in with a lot of nostalgia, like Ennis said. You know, it's impossible not to be nostalgic during the holidays. It's such a tradition from childhood that you're going to be brought back into these old energies.
Yeah, so a large part of it is just kind of recognizing that you are being visited by past emotions and that they don't have to influence your current reactions to it. You might feel certain things like sadness, like anger, like even fear, but those are just temporary feelings that are visiting you, and you can meet them with compassion, with understanding, and not get swept away in them. On that note of just visiting feelings in general, when you're in a situation and somebody maybe is judging you and outright saying something negative about you, oftentimes it's extra difficult to hear if it's something we haven't resolved in ourselves. So most of these judgments are actually just judgments of yourself. I'll give an example. Let's say that you are a mother who is raising kids who are not doing the best in school right now. And maybe they're typically pretty good students, but for whatever reason this year, maybe with everything going on with the online school and just all the chaos of COVID, people are having a harder time studying or paying attention. Whatever's going on, you feel guilty about it. You feel like it's your responsibility to make sure they do well in school, and you're putting a very irrational expectation on yourself that if they're doing bad in school, then it's your fault. So let's say somebody mentions that very casually. Maybe they're not even meaning to say anything rude. They just say, "Hey, how's the kids? How are they doing in school?" And just that little comment is enough to trigger you, because it makes you reminded of the fact that they're not doing well in school, and you feel like it's your fault. You might even project that person is doing it intentionally to mess with you, and you might think, "Oh, why do they always have to say things to piss me off?" But in reality, most of the comments that other people make are not meant to make you angry. They're not intentionally bad. They're just sort of reminding you of things that you haven't resolved. And even if they are intentionally bad, they only have power over you if on some level you do feel bad about that. And so the most powerful way to immunize yourself from getting triggered is to look at the things that you're insecure about and look at the things that you're haven't resolved in yourself, and come to terms with that, forgive yourself to the best of your ability, so that other comments by people just don't have the same effect.
Yeah, you know, we talk about family being so triggering, and romantic relationships too, because they're just this swirling ground that's going to stir up anything that's kind of unresolved, any parts of you that feel stuck in a negative emotion, any insecurities, and also any historical parts of you that are just, not resolved, not at peace with what's going on. So some other techniques that we want to talk about is just allow others to be. Allow them to be in their energy. For me, I'm very much a fixer. I very much hold kind of the burden of my family on my shoulders, meaning like, you know, I see their pain. I want to help fix them. I see, you know, the way my brother struggles or the way my mother struggles. And for me, when I can just take a second, recharge, and do a little bit of reinforcement around, hey, like they're doing their thing. I'm, you know, transferring a bit of information. I'm judging, I'm projecting a little bit. Just appreciate them and just be with me. It's a really big shift into just being present in the holidays, being accepting, and it opens the space for me to be really, really joyful and just engage with them in any ways that I can.
I love that.
Beyond that, for me, it's also being creative about what can I do? What is my intention for, you know, going to visit these people? What is my intention for spending time with them? Is it to laugh and joy and just kind of squeeze every ounce of pleasure I can out of this interaction? And so I'll go in with a plan. I might bring some games with me. I might structure the day and then just propose the structure to them to see if they're open to it, to avoid some of the situations that maybe I feel stuck in or can be triggering.
I love that. So you're kind of going in as a leader and saying, I can organize this interaction to the highest possibility instead of just letting it kind of like go by the wayside of random.
it's being really assertive, and this is really important in life, is like if you're and I talk all the time about being emotional leader, which is like if you're someone who does the inner examination, who does, goes to therapy or spends time journaling or really tries hard to sort out your internal life. Not everybody does that, so you may be the emotional leader. So be assertive about how can I set myself up for success. And this isn't some really deep emotional exercise. This is, here are some of the places where we find pitfalls. Here are some of the places where we have a good time. Let me structure it, to have fun and just list activities. And I think also your family might appreciate that because maybe they feel the same way as you. They probably don't want to get in triggering conversations or sticky situations.
Yeah, I love that. So the other big issue that I think we all kind of deal with is the feeling of being rushed and just overwhelmed with all the things that are happening. You gotta, get gifts for all these people. You gotta go visit all these people. Maybe there's just a lot of expectation to make dinner and, do the decorations and there's just maybe extra responsibility on top of your already busy plate. So in those moments, what's really coming to shine there is the particular judgment around if I don't do everything that's expected of me, what will people think? When we work with clients, this is the number one topic that comes up. It's like they feel overwhelmed. They feel like there's too much on their to-do list. And the root actual cause of all that stress is the fear of if I don't do everything on this, something bad's going to happen. People will judge me. Maybe I'll lose my job. Maybe I'll become homeless and alone. And there's the worst case scenarios that may not be conscious in the middle of that to-do list become much more clear once you break it down. So what are some ways that you avoid that rush, that heavy expectation?
It's all about setting boundaries, right? It's all about setting external and kind of internal boundaries, meaning you have to prioritize. And the first thing you have to prioritize is staying in your lane, staying grounded and kind of protected in what you need to stay balanced. So that is everything from maintaining your diet and being intentional during the holidays when there's cookies and cakes, and we're going to talk a lot more about that in avoiding the post-holiday depression, to maintaining space in your schedule for yourself, like trying to do the visit and the vacationing, but being smart about, hey, is it realistic for me to go to 7 holiday parties in one day, or do I want to kind of whittle it down to 3 or 4? That's exaggeration, of course. But really just setting boundaries with people, creating space for yourself. I like to take some breaks to recharge if I'm in like a highly kind of chaotic family party where there's a lot of people and a lot of energy, just to set that intention of like, hey, I'm going to make sure if I start to feel like my bandwidth going down or start to feel tired, I'm going to go, take a nap or do what I need to do, and do it without shame. Give myself permission to just do what I need to do.
So much of setting boundaries comes down to, can you say no without guilt? And that's fundamentally what's needed during this time of year to not get overwhelmed, is to say no to a few things without feeling guilty or ashamed about it, so that you can actually be at your best, or at least at 80% for all the other stuff going on. That's the big thing I would say when it comes to avoiding the rush. Is also when you're making your to-do list, just be really, really reasonable about what you can get done in a day. I think so many people, their to-do list is like this ideal of like what I would love to get done today. It's like, that's nice. I like to have 2 to-do lists. One is like an ideal of all the things that I would like to get done today, just so that I'm aware of what's on the radar. But then there I have like another pretty reasonable to-do list of like what I actually expect myself to accomplish today. And that's usually a lot shorter, a lot more reasonable. And if I get it done, then I might tackle something else on the longer one. But in general, as Jim said, it's like you're just giving yourself way more space so that you can go and take a nap, go and meditate, go and just catch up on whatever you need to catch up on that helps you thrive in general.
Yeah, and just another note on staying grounded. You as a human being evolve constantly. You're growing, and if you're watching these videos, especially, you're intentional about kind of being the best version of yourself or feeling as peaceful and calm as you can. Being around people that you don't hang out with a lot, it can be almost like a time warp to suck you back into a lot of old behaviors and a lot of old thought patterns. And the part of the problem with it is there can be a lot of resistance from other people when you've changed or when you say no or when you set boundaries, especially if they're overbearing parents or they're, really people that have felt really bonded to you in the past. And they may not like that you've evolved or that you've changed or that you're taking care of himself, because it could be a reflection of them that they're not doing those things. And so you really have to double up on your defense and intentionality that I need what I need. And that's okay. That's damn okay. Not only is it damn okay, it's a necessity for you to maintain your balance during these holidays. And really to enjoy the holidays, to be present with other people, it takes a lot of acceptance of you and your needs, and acceptance of other people and where they're at too. So set up those defenses, put up your kind of emotional shield to not absorb or over empathize with other people, and just be true to what you need to take care of yourself.
100%. I love that. Stay tuned for part 2. We're going to be talking about the stress of gift giving, gift receiving, and in general, just kind of looking at your behavior and what triggers you on the logistics side of the holidays. In part 3, we're going to talk about dealing with loneliness. Maybe you want to go see your family, but you can't. Maybe you're feel like you have nowhere to go, and you just kind of feel alone during the holidays, and it's a time of sadness for you. How to deal with that. And then, of course, part 4, we're going to go into more detail on how to avoid the holiday blues that can have the post-holiday blues when you've been overspending, overeating, and just generally not taking care of yourself, how to avoid that. So stay tuned for that. We're going to cover anything related to holiday anxiety so that you can thrive during these this next few weeks or so and have the best time possible, whether it's you and your dog or you and yourself or you and your family. It doesn't really matter. It's all about staying grounded, because wherever you go, there you are. And we want to make sure that you are feeling as calm and as peaceful as you can be.
So guys, remember, no matter how long you've been struggling, no matter what you're struggling from, no matter how intense it is, you're never, ever stuck. You might just need some support. And truthfully, with the right mindset and with a little bit of planning, this could be the best holiday season of your life. Lots of love from Inner Solutions. Thank you guys so much, and good mental health. Ring ting tingling, ding 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 ding. That's staying in.
I like it.